Okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to be going over glazing, how to glaze your bisqueware. So in order to get bisqueware, this is what I have in front of me here, 2 pinch pots that have been bisque fired. What you have to do is you have to get the plastic clay and you have to make your project. Once your project's dried out, it goes into the kiln. Then when it comes out, you've bisqueware, which is what this is right here. So what we're going to go over today is how to add colorant and how to seal up the project. Okay? So in order to do that, the first thing that you're going to need to look at is going to be tiles. We have 2 sets of tiles. Okay? We have a Crystal X Glaze tiles right here, and then we have Foodware Safe tiles right here. You want to make sure that you look at the back to see what the color is. Okay, like for instance, this is dark blue. This is how it comes out when there's 1 layer, 2 layer, and 3 layers of glaze on it, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But always look at the tile to see how it's going to come out. Because if you look at the container here, this is actually dark blue, but it does not look dark blue in the container. Okay, so make sure you look for the tiles. So dark blue is what I'm going to choose. The name of it is right here or right here. So this is kaleidoscope, so we want to see what that's going to look like. It's going to look like this right here on the tile. Okay, so look at the tiles first. That's how you're going to pick your glazes. Then, when we go to glaze, I want to be able to eat or drink out of this bowl here. So I'm going to make sure that it has a knife and a fork on it, because that means that it is a Foodware Safe glaze. Okay, if it does not have that on it, it is not Foodware Safe. Even though this says non-toxic, this is still not Foodware Safe. So what happens when a glaze is not Foodware Safe is that after it's fired, it has a lead content in it. And that lead content stays in your project after it's been fired, and it will leach lead into your food and drink, and it will poison you. So then what you're going to do is you're going to take your lid off after you've shaken the glaze up a little bit. Okay, and when we go to glaze, the glaze is going to look kind of like this. You want to try and avoid contaminating the glazes because they are expensive. They're about $15 to $20 for a container. And then you're just going to use a brush to apply the glaze. Now I'm going to put the Foodware Safe glaze on the inside here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to apply it around the rim, which is the top part here. You want to keep going back, making sure that you fill your brush up. You don't want to miss any spots that we want to be blue. And then on the inside here. Now, as I'm doing this, this is 1 layer of glaze. Okay? Don't miss any spots, because if you do, they'll stay that way when they come out of the kiln. They'll be bare clay, bare bisqueware, and you don't want that. Glaze does have decomposing clay still in it, so sometimes the glazes have kind of an odor to them. We don't need to make comments about it or anything like that. We can just I don't know why people have to sniff stuff all the time. Okay? So you can see that the first layer dries pretty fast. So once the first layer is pretty dry, like right now, you can start to put the second layer on. You need at least 3 layers of glaze. You don't want to go any more than 3, because if you go over 3, what's going to happen is the glaze is going to bubble up, and I'll show you some examples later of like projects that turned out pretty bad. Now after the second layer, this is going to have to take a little bit to dry. Okay, so I'll show you what to do next. So then you're going to take this, I'm going to set it off to the side. In your notes, what you have is a sheet in the back that looks like this. Very last page. It says pinch pot, glaze color, and number of layers. So what you want to do, so you don't forget from class to class, because a lot of times you don't have a whole class period to work on the glazing, I'm going to write here dark blue, and I'm going to put 2 marks there so I know I've done 2 layers for my pinch pot. Okay? Same is true for your box or your cup whenever you get to that point. Then when you add your last layer on there, you can put it on. Now, the other thing I'm going to put on there is kaleidoscope, so you can abbreviate them if you want to. And I don't have any layers on there, but that's what I want to use, is kaleidoscope on the outside. Okay? So, next thing we're going to look at is a dome lid pinch pot. So this is a dome lid pinch pot here. Now when these get set in the kiln, they're going to be set side by side like this. So we can't have any parts around here that are going to be touching the kiln, cannot be glazed. So when you're glazing your lid, it's super important that you leave space around here so that it can set in the kiln and it's not going to touch the kiln shelves. So what I recommend doing if you have a dome lid is to take a pencil and create that 1/4 inch, we'll call it a buffer zone for the glaze. You can just draw it on. And it doesn't have to be exactly a 1/4 inch. You can just guesstimate it. And then on the inside also, because you can glaze the insides of the dome lids a little bit just to finish them up. Okay, so that's all around in there and here. So when I go to glaze this one, I'm going to glaze it dark blue again. I'm going to stay above that line. If you go a little below it like that, that's okay. So I'm going to stay above it like that when I glaze. Be very careful if you're handling the handles. And you always want to make sure that you glaze really well around the handles, because those are a common spot to get white marks, the bare clay. So you want to make sure you hit those up pretty good. So I'm going to go around the handle here. Staying above that line. And once again, you can see that the first layer of this goes on there pretty quickly. Okay, and then the other part that you want to glaze is the inside in here. Once again, if you go a little bit below that, it's not a huge deal. That's just a estimate. You don't want to go below the line. Okay, and you'd still need 2 to 3 layers on that also. Now let's say that as you're bringing your brush across, you accidentally hit that. What you can do is you can just take a sponge, and you can wait till it's dry, and then just sponge it off. Now some of the darker colors like black or freckled brown, they'll leave a little bit of like residue from the clay there. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Okay, so that's kind of what you want it like for your dome lid pinch pot. Alright, next. Okay, I said that I would show you what it looked like whenever things were bubbled up and they had too many things on them. This is a project that had entirely too many layers of glaze on it. You can see that it's bubbled up quite a bit there. I'll zoom in so you guys can really see it. Okay, all of those little bubbles in there. This pot had way too many layers of glaze on it. And what these are, this is like bubbles of the glaze, like broken glass kind of. So when I pass this around, you want to be very careful that you don't cut yourself on it. The other thing that can go wrong is that you don't put enough glaze on, which is what this person did. And you can kind of see, I know that the lighting's kind of hard to see, but I'll pass this one around too. It's kind of streaky, and if you touch it there, it still feels rough, like there's rough clay, especially right here on the rim. Okay, you can even see that it's rough compared to here where it's a little thicker and smooth. So you want to make sure that you get 3. 3 is a good number. Okay. The other thing that you want to make sure that you glaze, if you're doing a flat lid, make sure that you glaze this part, the outer edge of the lid. Do not glaze the bottom, okay? And make sure you get the handle and the top and everything like that. So don't glaze the bottom. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do not glaze is the foot. Okay, so do not glaze the foot down around here. Okay, no glazing that. If you get glaze on it, just wipe it off. Okay, there are yogurt cups. If you would like to use a yogurt cup, you can, but just make sure that you wash it out really well, okay? And then once you're done with your project, after you have it glazed, put it over on the blue counter to the left by the windows so that they can go back in the kiln. Your project will be like this, or it'll be matte like this until it comes out of the kiln. And then once it comes out of the kiln, it'll have a glossy glass finish, okay, kind of like this. If you want to do designs or anything like that, there will be examples in a video to come.